All right, this video will talk about the different kinds of equations and then concepts like combining like terms versus inverse operations, the distributive property, and just basic variables on both sides of equations that you'll run into many times. For your homework, I want you to write each problem that I'm doing and then just turn it in tomorrow with your name on it. All right, here we go. First thing I'm going to do is talk about the 4 basic inverse operations. I'm going to start with that. These first problems dealing with inverse operations are basic equations solving for the variable x that you would plug in and solve this equation and make it true. I know a lot of these it's easy to see what the number would be, but we need you to show the work. So obviously the opposite of adding is subtracting, the opposite of subtracting is adding, the opposite of multiplying is dividing, and the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So these problems show all 4 operations. The opposite of adding 4 is subtracting 4. The opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. The opposite of multiplying by negative 2, which that's negative 2 times x. Opposite of multiplying by negative 2 is dividing by negative 2. The opposite of dividing by negative 4 is multiplying by negative 4. So that problem on the right, x over negative 4, that shows x divided by negative 4. So here we go. I'm going to do the inverse operations in blue. So each of those inverse operations got x all by itself. So that x all by itself is the solution to the equation. So some of the trickier ones, multiplying by negative 2, make sure you divide by negative 2. Don't just divide by negative 2. Dividing by negative 4, make sure you multiply both sides by negative 4. Do the opposite. Make sure that negative is in there. I'm going to do a couple checks here in red. If I take that solution and plug it in, I should be able to make it work. If it doesn't, that shows me that my solution is wrong or some of my inverse operations is wrong. Make sure you know all your negative rules at this point. Make sure for your homework you're writing down all these problems. If you need to, stop and go back and pause or play. Next thing I'm going to do is show the difference between combining like terms and inverse operations. The key to solving some more complex equations is make sure you're combining all like terms before you do any inverse operations. If you do inverse operations to the same side of an equation, it throws it off and makes it unequal. So I'm going to do here is show a couple of bad inverse operations in red, and then I'm going to show good combining like terms, which I'll do first, which will then lead you to start to do your inverse operations. So here we go. Again, you would never do inverse operations to the same side of an equation. That throws off your equation and makes it unequal. So all I'm going to do is do the correct combining like terms steps in blue, and I'll do my inverse operations. So for these problems, I combined 2 and -5 to get -3. I made sure I brought down the -3 when I started solving the equation, that -3 with a 3x. My inverse operations, I'm adding 3 to both sides, opposite of subtracting 3. My last step is to divide by -3. Remember, -3x, that's -3 times x, so the opposite is dividing by -3. The other problem, combining like terms, I'm combining 5x and -2x into 3x. And then my inverse operations, again, I'm adding 3 and then dividing by 3. Unmixing a fraction, I know that's a little tricky, but dividing the bottom number and the top, you need to be able to unmix fractions. All right, I'm going to start to do the distributive property and then the last problem. For the distributive property, again, when you have a number out front of parentheses with two or more things inside being added and subtracting, one of them being variables, then you got to distribute. It's a little bit different than the order of operations where you do the work in the parentheses. For these, you usually have a variable inside there. So distribute means taking that 2 and multiplying times the x and the -4. On the harder one, distributing, when you multiply 5 on both sides, you need to make sure you're multiplying the 5 times the 6y and the -5. So here we go. So again, the distributive property, when you have a number out front, you multiply by both things inside. I know the check on the left was okay, the check on the right a little bit weird, and the problem on the right dealing with x and y, we're dealing with solving literal equations, but again, we'll get to that. Next problem is variables on both sides equation. For these problems, the key, I believe, is the left, right, left approach. Starting on the left, getting rid of the plain number, going to the right, getting rid of the variable, and then going back to the left and ending up with division, getting rid of the last step. So for this problem, I'm going to solve for x. Here we go. As you can see for this problem, whoa, I went way back. For x is -3. So when I was doing my check and I plugged in -4, I saw that something was not right. So I'm going back, going to change my answer to -3 for x. So when I do my check, it will work. So make sure sometimes if you want to check your answer to see, make sure you do. Here we go. So I can see my answer for x, -3, my solution to the equation was correct. When I checked it, it did work. So good luck. For the homework, again, write all these problems down, put your name on it, and turn them in tomorrow. Thank you.